President Herzog, thank you for joining us on CBN News.
Thank you, Julie.
So since October 7th, Israel is in probably one of the worst times it's been in since it was established. How do you feel about the situation now? Do you believe Israel is going to come out victorious?
So we are at war, and the war that we are holding is not only a war between Israel and Hamas. It's a war that has to define civilizational values, and it has to define the way the family of nations operates. We're in a way protecting the values of a major part of the world who believes in freedom, liberties, democracy, because if we weren't here and all Jews would be wiped off here, that's what the Hamas wants, these ISIS-type organizations, these jihadists, then Europe would be next and the United States is next. So we're at the frontier of a major class of civilizational values, and we're protectors of the entire free world.
Now, your father was a voice of comfort to Israel during the Six-Day War. Do you feel that you are, in this moment in Israel's history, called to bring comfort at this time of Israel's struggle for its survival?
In many ways, yes. I'm the head of state. I'm the president of Israel. I don't hold executive powers, and I believe in unifying our people, in comforting our people, in hugging our people in the moment of great pain and agony. I see so much pain and agony, so many cups full of tears, so many good citizens of Israel whose lives were taken and they were killed by lecherous, murderous, sadistic and barbaric terrorists. This is really a test for our nation as we move on. And I'm very grateful to the support we're getting from many, many friends, from the United States administration, from President Biden, from both sides of the aisle. But I'm really moved by the strong Christian communities all over the world who've been supporting us. I recently, just a few days ago, in honor of Christmas, I hosted a group of evangelical pastors in Israel who reside in Israel and relay a message of friendship and solidarity, and it was just simply amazing. And I want to thank all the supporters of Israel and all our friends in the United States and all over the world who are siding by us and supporting Israel. Toda rabah to all of you from Jerusalem. Thank you.
A lot of those Christians feel they're praying and they're supporting Israel, but many want to know, what can they do more? What can they do more to support Israel?
First of all, we have to remember that we have 129 hostages out there, from babies to old age people who are coming of age, who are all alone in this terrible, dire situation, in the worst type of abduction by a sadistic terrorist. And we have to pray for them and we have to work for them, meaning we have to raise their issues all over the world. Each and every government and each and every network should put them as the main item in their news and point a finger to Iran, who is holding this empire of evil with its forks all over the place, from Hezbollah in Lebanon, from Hamas in Gaza, from Iraq and Syria, and of course with the Houthis in Yemen, who are actually making all families around the world pay a much higher cost because of the cost of travel and the cost of trade around the world. And this is therefore a war that matters to all people in the world.
What do you think it's going to take to bring the hostages home?
We are in a war, and our military is operating day in, day out in Gaza in a meticulous, brave and courageous way, and each and every house is fully detonated. Imagine that each and every house in each one's neighborhood is an explosive device. That's what they're seeing. They have to make sure that the explosives don't work. They have to go into people's homes. Underneath there are piers of tunnels. The tunnels are probably with hostages and with terrorists. It's a very complicated battle, and we are progressing day by day in order to demolish the infrastructure of Hamas and apply enough pressure for the Hamas to release the hostages.
Now, we've seen an explosion of anti-Semitism around the world. What do you think is behind this, and how can it be dealt with?
So we are dealing with an age-old, centuries-old, millennia-old disease called anti-Semitism, the hate of Jews. We know that usually these things start with the Jews but never end with them. It's simply a warning system for the entire world that there's a lot of hate and people say terrible things. And as I've said, when we are dealing with civilizational values, this is one of them. We have to fight it. We have to be strong. We have to adjudicate and law enforce and arrest and educate. This is a wake-up call for the entire humanity to fight this vicious disease. And Israel being the only nation state of the Jewish people in the world must be fully protected, and the hate of Jewish communities must be eradicated. Our brothers and sisters, Jews from all over the world, are jeopardized and are fearful, and it calls for solidarity and alliance against these forces.
And so now you mentioned Iran. How do you want the world to deal with Iran? I mean, they want to wipe Israel. They've been saying it for decades.
So
want to wipe Israel
the world
out.
has to stand firm against Iran. Iran is the source of evil in the region. We're seeing it all over the world. And now, some of these proxies of Iran, they also have terrorist cells around the world. So that's why we have to be very firm and tough with the Iranians. Their expansionist empire-like dreams of conquering the Middle East, one has to read these scriptures of theirs and understand how dangerous they are. That is why we must stand firm, and that's why the United States stands firmly with Israel, and we bless the United States for that. There are other moderate Arab states with us who are aligned with us. They must all be protected in one big coalition against a coalition of hate, which wants to drive this region into the abyss. And I'm calling upon all leaders in the world, and definitely in the United States, to make sure that this policy definitely continues. Furthermore, I repeat, take for example the issue of the Houthis in Yemen, a small tribe which is a proxy of Iran. If one looks at the data, one understands that they are armed up to their heads with ballistic missiles, with drones, with cruise missiles. What is this? An empire? What is this? And they're blocking a main navigation and high seas route. Are we back to the famous piracy of the medieval times? The world order post-World War II must be very, very well protected and defended by a coalition of states that must be really tough and project power in the region against these forces.
Israel is the state of the Jewish people, or the Jewish state, but you have lots of minorities here. You have the Muslims, the Christians, Druze, Bedouin. How do they really have freedom of religion here? Are their holy sites protected? How are they responding?
Absolutely. Israel is strongly committed to protection of all the holy sites and the freedom of religion. Extremely, extremely committed to that from the day of its creation. Israel is extremely committed to it from the day of its creation. Moreover, I would say that every year I have an annual gathering of all the Christian leaders, all the leaders of the Christian communities in the Holy Land. Usually a very joyous event. On Thursday we convened. It was a sad event. There was no music. It was only a discussion on how much pain everybody is enduring and suffering. However, I repeated and reiterated Israel's full commitment to the protection of all Christian communities in the Holy Land, to the freedom of religion, to the freedom of practice, and of course the protection of the holy sites.
How does that compare to the countries around Israel?
So we are the only country in the region which is democratic, which has full freedom of speech as far as possible fully protected by our Supreme Court, which is a strong independent judiciary. We have the right of free speech embedded in our DNA, and it's very impressive in a country fighting terror. All the countries around us are dictatorships and autocratic. And therefore, it's not promised that the freedom of religion will be there. There are countries around us where the freedom of the Christian communities is questionable. In Gaza itself, the Palestinians haunted, chased, and burned churches. And we are doing whatever we can, even amidst these terrible battles in Gaza, to make sure that the Christian members of the Christian faith and other faiths are fully protected, are not attacked by our forces.
Do you know if there's anything being done to help the Christians? We understand there's about 1,000 Christians left in Gaza. I don't even know if they want to come out. Is there anything being done to help them?
Well, so throughout my career, I've been involved in the relations between the State of Israel and the Christian world, the Christian communities. I was in charge twice on the visit of the Pope in Israel. And my family had long-standing relations with the Holy See. And we are quite disappointed, by the way, in the current challenge, in the current war, by the position taken by the Holy See. We would expect a much stronger and much more firm commitment and the announcement of the hostage-taking and a firm call for their release and a firm effort by the Holy See vis-a-vis Iran, Qatar, and everybody who can have an impact, of course, on releasing the hostages. We expect much more than that. But I can say that throughout my career, time and again, the issue of the Christian community in Gaza has always been important to us. And whenever we could, in each and every round of battle, we would make sure that they are protected. Unfortunately, there were tragedies in this war too, and we hope and pray for their well-being and safety.
As a child in Israel or growing up here, do you have any memories of encounters with Christians or the Christian holidays or anything like that?
I would say that I grew, my adolescent years were spent in New York, where my father served in the United Nations. So I was, of course, exposed to the Christian life, naturally. But I told you that even my grandfather was the chief rabbi here, had an intense dialogue. He came from Ireland and always had a very close relations with the Catholic Church in Ireland. He was viewed in Irish history as one that both Catholics and Protestants would be able to have full faith and trust in. My uncle, Jacob Herzog, who was a legendary diplomat, has laid down the agreements, the historic agreements between the State of Israel, which was just founded, and the Christian communities and churches operating in the Holy Land. And I, for one, for years have been keeping this and following in my father's footsteps, who was also president of Israel, the sixth president, in maintaining a very strong bond with the Christian communities in the Holy Land. And it is an opportunity for me to wish all the Christian citizens of Israel, of all denominations, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And of course, to wish all our allies and friends and supporters all over the world and people of the world who are celebrating Christmas and the New Year with the wish for Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And let's hope that 2024 will bring with it a different direction for the people of the Middle East, a direction of peace, a direction of no more war. But unfortunately, in order to get there, you have to get through war, because you have to remove Hamas out of Gaza in order to change the history and the situation of the citizens of Gaza and the citizens of Israel.
Speaking about peace in the Middle East, do you think that it was worth it for Israel to have gone towards peace and reached out? The disengagement, all those things.
Well, there are things that we have our doubts about, but it's a proof that we tried our best. We tried our best in all sorts of alternatives with our neighbors, the Palestinians. We tried peace agreements. We got terror and suicide bombings. We pulled out of Gaza to the last iota. We got 10,000 missiles. It brings a lot of questions as to the paradigm of the ability to make peace with our neighbors. And yet, I am always optimistic. And I think that as a vision, we must always strive for peace with our neighbors.
How do you think the day after looks? How is Israel going to come out of this
Well,
time?
so it is complicated, and I differentiate between two aspects. One is the security aspect, meaning how do you prevent further terror and Hamas coming up again and rising up again? For that, we need the Israeli military, because I don't see any other army with boots on the ground there, unless there's a force that will be forced and built and formed with the ability to enforce its presence and fight terror. And I don't know how that can be done so quickly. The other element is the civilian issue, meaning how do we manage Gaza the day after? What do we do in order to rebuild Gaza without terror? This is the main question that in the halls of decision makers people are discussing, both in Washington, in Jerusalem, and elsewhere.
Now, I personally have been so impressed by the way Israelis come together and volunteer and want to help and want to be involved. What do you think gives Israel that oomph to do that?
First of all, I want to thank volunteers who've come from abroad. Many Jewish volunteers, but I also invite many Christian volunteers to come and volunteer. There's a lot of issues dealing with the farmers and the agricultural field because, unfortunately, foreign employees had to leave during the war. There's the need to strengthen and foster the communities on the border, both north and south, of being evicted. But I must speak about the spirit of my nation. I'm so proud of Israel. This spirit of unity, of giving to the other. I say this is the hidden light of our nation. We spread hidden light here from the Holy Land. We send this message abroad. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And people are doing this big time. And I'm so proud and so honored to head this nation, which has shown again that it is resilient and strong, optimistic, and shall overcome.
Well, thank you very, very much, President Herzog, for joining us. Our prayers are with you, and we really
Thank you.
are
Thank you
praying for the best.
Thank you.